Hola, je m'appelle Jordan. Welcome to episode 35 of the Chocolate Croissants podcast. I'm going to be very brief in this intro today. The episode is with Javier Reyes of Animals as Leaders, who has been on tour with Matt and Periphery over the past month. And the episode is the two of them. I think some special guests as well, as they do this from the back of Periphery's tour bus. Not really sure why everything happens on the back of a tour bus. I think at one point it would be nice for maybe an episode to be recorded in the middle of the tour bus, but that is for people like Matt and Javier who actually have tour buses to decide on. But I would appreciate their insight on that. Anyway, Rode Microphones, they are the official sponsor for episode 35. They have been with us from the very beginning and have been so supportive, providing us with all of the audio equipment that we have been using week in and week out to create the content for you to consume through your podcast app of choice every week. Rode.com, Rode.com. Wow. They make it so easy. But honestly, we got chocolatecroissants.com, and I still don't understand why that was available. Anyway, right now what I'm using is Rode's NT-USB microphone. It's super simple. I just hook it into my laptop, and I open up GarageBand, and that is what I'm doing. Technology, it is amazing. And then when we do podcasts more formally, we use the Procasters. But check out Rode.com. They have all kinds of different microphones and audio equipment. Whether you're hooking it up to your iPhone or a video camera or plugging it into your laptop or recording live music, whatever it is, they can meet your needs. Also, Facebook, Instagram, RODEMIC, Rode Mic. Facebook, Instagram. Check them out, support them because they've been very supportive of us. Also real quick, fuck it, I work with Ring of Honor, I do marketing and branding. We have our biggest pay-per-view of the year, Friday, December 15th. It's sold out right away, the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, the middle of Manhattan. I will be there, I am fucking excited to do that. Even though it's sold out, you can watch it from home or wherever you are. If you have cable, pay-per-view, that's the way to do it. You can also order and watch through our website, rohwrestling.com. If you have a PlayStation, you can watch it there. Or the Fight TV app, F-I-T-E, Fight TV app. It's free to download, and then you can order Ring of Honor pay-per-views through there, or also watch our weekly TV for free. Fight TV app, check it out. Think you'd like it. If you don't know anything about pro wrestling, think of it this way. WWE, they're like Imagine Dragons, and Ring of Honor, we're the Periphery, or Animals as Leaders. Ring of Honor, it's awesome. I'm there because I genuinely love it. Anyway, episode 35, we are going to begin that right now. Javier Reyes, Animals as Leaders, with Matt of Periphery. Enjoy.
Hey everybody, Matt Halpern here, coming to you from, where are we today? Salt Lake City, Utah, in the back of the Periphery tour bus with episode 35 of the Chocolate Croissants podcast. I've been promising to get our guests today on for a few weeks now, and it's just been kind of crazy on this tour, and we finally got it lined up. So our guest today is Javier Reyes Jr. from the band Animals as Leaders. And I've known Javier since really before most people in my own band, because I played in Animals as Leaders, which many of you may or may not know, for a very brief period of time back in 2008, I think, like 2007, 2008?
2008, I think it was.
Yeah. 2008. And when Javier and I met, we became fast friends, I think, right away.
Right away.
Yeah. You were, so for those that don't know, the brief story of how I ended up playing with Animals as Leaders was I was playing some pop rock gig with a couple friends of mine in Baltimore, and Misha Mansour from my band and our old guitar player Alex Boyce, who was a friend of mine who I went to college with as well, who was the guitar player Periphery, came out to see me play. And when Misha saw me for the first time, he was like, damn, this dude's a really good drummer. He might fit really well for this project that I'm working on. And that project at the time that he was working on was the first Animals as Leaders record. Him and Tosin were recording this record in Misha's apartment, just the two of them at the time, and they were looking to, to find a drummer. So Misha, kind of approached me and said, hey, I got this band you know, this new project that I'm producing, and I think you would be a great potential drummer for it. And when I first heard it, I was like, nope, no way. I don't think I can play this shit. It's way too crazy. And it was such a departure from what I was used to doing. But the more and more I listened to it, the more I kind of fell in love with it. And, you know, the music was super, super challenging, but also really unique and really progressive from a drumming standpoint and from an overall melodic standpoint. So I just kind of started falling in love with it and listening to it more, and I tried to play through some of the songs, and I was actually able to do it. So next thing you know, Misha set up an audition for me to go down to DC from Baltimore and set up a small little drum set. I don't even know if I brought my drums or had a kit there, but basically set up a really small drum set in Javier's basement at the time. And at that practice, that was the first time I got a chance to jam with Javier, first chance I got to jam with Tosin and Misha.
And then Siobhan was there.
Siobhan was there too, who
was at the time was the fourth member of the band. He was going to do the electronics, and just didn't work out eventually for it. But
yeah, but he's doing
some cool stuff. Yeah, but he just not on the stage side.
Yeah,
of things.
Exactly. And so the very long story short is, you know, when we got together, you know, we kind of all became pretty fast friends, and we practiced quite a bit, I want to say, for a while, because I don't know if there were already shows booked.
Well, I think there was like an Amur show that we were gonna do or something like that. It was like Amur. It was a show in Baltimore that we got, you know, lined up for.
At Fletcher's.
Yeah, either at Fletcher's or 8x10 or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
So we were like pressing hard to get it done, but yeah. And at that point, Tosin and I had been going through a few people. I mean, there was, I don't know, was Rudy after or before you?
I think Rudy auditioned before.
Right.
I think he'd auditioned before, and then you guys had Vinny.
Vinny was the first, and then that didn't work out. Rudy, he was 17 at the time. He was tried so hard. He, like, I guess it took him a month to learn the whole, you know, tempting time.
Yeah.
And we asked him to learn like 5 songs. He was like, oh, it's gonna take like 5 or 6 more months. And we were like, oh, dude, we can't make that.
Yeah.
We can't do that.
Couldn't take that time. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. And I remember I've always been a fast learner with stuff, and I came in and I knew that I wasn't playing the songs verbatim. You know, like there were certain skill sets that I just hadn't worked on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was doing the same thing, bro. I mean, those parts were hard. I hadn't played metal actually in a long time. I had given up on metal for a good while too. You know, when I was 22 or something, I quit metal. The first version of Animals as Leaders that Tosin let me hear was so not metal. You know, that was the other thing too. When he first let me hear this material, he was like, yo, I'm doing this project. Do you want to be the other guitar player when I take it out live? And I was like, let me hear it. He sends it to me, and it's all jazzy. It's all kind of more electronic, hardly any distortion anywhere. And it wasn't until he redid it with Misha that it became like this gent thing, you know, which I think was probably better in the long run. Obviously, I think it gave it an identity.
Yeah.
Because it was all over the place before, but at that point, I'm like having to pick up my metal chops again. Like I hadn't played metal in a minute.
Yeah, me neither.
I was writing hip hop and fucking playing tango.
Which is so crazy because, I mean, it's funny. You and I were both in very different places musically. So I was playing very kind of, I don't want to say casually because we took it seriously, but I was playing this like fun metal band at the time with some of my best friends called Mad Mardigan, who one of the guys is my current roommate. So I was playing the band with him, and I was playing pop music, and I was doing session work, and I was in no mindset to be playing metal, but I had been exposed to Periphery and Bulb. So like I've been thinking about that style, and then when I heard the drums and the newness of the sound for the first Animals as Leaders record and that the gent approach to it, I was like, fuck, this is kind of awesome. Like, this is a cool chance. And I don't know if you remember too, but at the time I was really trying to launch Band Happy.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And I was really, I mean, in all honesty, I was looking at this like, okay, this is a really cool opportunity, because if this band goes somewhere, it's going to help me reach an audience of musicians that might be the right audience for the business that I was trying to launch, which is exactly what I communicated to Periphery when I joined their band as well. So anyway, that being said, when I met you, you looked completely different than you look now. So now you're like fit and like all in shape, and you got this like sick ass beard, and you and I both have mad gray hair. But you had like long hair, this like big thick dark beard. You were living in DC. You were working on, you were working on hip hop at the time. And I remember just even in the first bunch of times that we sat down together and just hang out, like we would just kind of like smoke and chill and, you know, wait for Tosin to show up, and we'd have to go find him sitting in Adams Morgan with like a little, you know, cafe. Yeah, having a coffee, just, hey, come on, man, time to practice. But that was some of the most fun stuff. And then we played two shows. We played at DC9 and Fletcher's. And I remember DC9 was kind of like, I mean, I had fun, but it was such a, I mean, it was like a small setup. We were like in the corner of this little room. And for those that are from DC or have been in that venue, you know, it's like up the stairs and really small and not ideal.
Corner stage.
Yeah.
Low ceiling.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was a fun experience, but it was a shot venue. And I think there's actually footage from that night somewhere. I don't know where, but I've seen it before. Then we played Fletcher's, and that was a sick show.
The Fletcher's was a sick show. I remember that.
I remember that being awesome, because all of Periphery was there, and they were, so this venue Fletcher's in Baltimore is not there anymore. But if you're on the stage and you're looking out from stage left, there was this little area against the wall where there was a bench, and on this bench, literally, it was Tom Murphy, Travis Orban, Jake Bowen, Misha Mansour, and at the time, Chris Barretto, and Alex Boyce. And they were just all standing there, like, watching the show, and I'm like, damn, like, Periphery's watching us, you know, like, I gotta nail these parts. And we had a full audience, like, it was like a packed show. I don't remember who we were playing with, though.
I think it was just like a normal local show.
Was it like a Noise in the Basement thing, maybe? Something like that?
Actually, it might have been like a Monday night sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was awesome.
Yeah, it was sick.
It was really fun. And then next thing you know, like, we were kind of poised to, like, we wanted to do more. We wanted to get out and tour on that record. And then next thing we know, kind of just life hit each of us in a different way. I know Tosin at the time was exploring moving out of the area. Correct. And doing some things down in the South. And you, if I recall, got really heavily involved into producing hip-hop and rap.
Yeah, I had gotten a studio job producing hip-hop. So at that point I was like, okay, well, this is a little bit more secure, you know.
Yeah.
Let me take that option. Because we just had these two shows, and at the time it was instrumental metal, what the fuck.
Yeah.
You know, what does one do with that?
And I think too, we were trying to figure out whether or not, like, there would be a record deal, because there was some confusion, if I recall, with like the previous record label and what Tosin's like obligations were to that. So everything was just kind of in flux, and I don't remember ever any like negativity between any of us. It was just more like, we don't know how to do this right now, and we all have other opportunities, and we're just going to do that. So, you know, you were doing the production thing, and Tosin was going down to Kentucky, and I was working on launching this Band Happy thing. And in that time, I get a call from Misha, who's like, hey, our drummer just left Periphery. You and I have jammed a couple songs in your basement, Javier. And he's like, you're the only one I know who can maybe learn a few songs right away. Can you learn 6 or 7 songs and come fill in for these shows for us? And then that was the start of me joining Periphery. And I remember feeling so bad, because I had joined Periphery, but then you guys got an offer to play New England Metal Fest. And for whatever reason, there was like a conflict of interest, or there was a conflict somehow where Tosin had reached out to me and say, hey, I know you're doing Periphery, but we got this opportunity to play New England Metal Fest. It's going to be sick. It's going to be 1,000+ people, whatever it is. Can you please play it? And I couldn't do it. And I remember feeling shitty. And I don't remember, did you guys end up playing it or no?
No. At that point, I think he started touring with Boo.
Oh, right.
Cyrus.
Right.
I think people were hitting him up about Animals as Leaders. So I think people just started giving him show offers.
Because the music was out.
The music was out. 2008. Like, you know, as soon as Misha and Tosin finished writing it, they just put it up on MySpace, and it was out for the whole world. You know?
It was a hit.
Yeah, it was it was pretty sick. You know, everybody just knew it. But by that point, you know, I think it's either late 2008 or early 2009 is when that New England Metal Fest would have happened. And Tosin's just getting offers, and then we start getting that BT BAM offer. And that wasn't. It wasn't until then that we were like, okay, well, fuck, okay, this is a real tour. It's not just one show. You know, let's get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, we were scrambling
to find a drummer, right?
Scrambling to find a drummer. I think we tried Rudy again. He was just too a little green, you know.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was what? He's 17 or 18 years old. Yeah,
he killed it. I mean, I think at the time he had a cover of Tempting Time. And
yep, and he was killing it. It's funny. He had the long hair at that point.
Yeah.
We're talking about Alex Rudinger for those that don't know him by Rudy, who we need to have on the podcast at some point too. I remember even at that time, Tosin was sending me all sorts of people that were auditioning for you. He was sending me videos, and he was like, "Can you help vet these guys and tell me who you think might be good?" And I think even then, like Troy Wright was sending in videos, or that might have been a little bit later.
No,
after
Troy Wright
Naveen.
was a little later.
Was that after Naveen?
Yeah.
So how did the Naveen thing unfold?
Dude, we didn't know what we were gonna do. We didn't have a drummer. I think we even reached out to Vinny again, and it was just like, wait, no, that's a mistake. Don't hit up Vinny. We were kind of about to play to backing drum tracks, and it was just going to be the two of us playing guitar. And then, literally a week before the first show, Naveen calls Tosin and is like, "Yo, you still don't have a drummer? I'm mailing my kit. I'm shipping my kit to House right now. I'm gonna be your drummer." I have no fucking clue. Tosin just comes up and says, "Hey, so this dude Naveen, who I played in this band Animosity, is gonna come and do the drums." I was like, "Cool, we got a drummer." I didn't know who he was.
Right.
I met him when I went to pick him up at the airport 5 days before the first show. Picked him up at the airport, immediately went to our recording studio where I worked at to rehearse there. You know, every night until we had to leave for tour.
Right.
And that was kind of the start of, you know, the little Naveen era. I mean, it was just like, "What's up? Let's go."
Yeah.
You know? And literally was that for that first week, because we, you know, tried to rehearse as much as we could before we had to leave. Made it to the first show right at showtime. Both BT BAM and Veil of Maya were like waiting for us and helping us pull all our gear onto the stage as soon as we got there. It was kind of insane. But the crazy thing about it, that being our first, you know, big show, people already knew the music.
Right.
Which was pretty awesome.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
It was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, and it's funny how there were no barriers to entry for people to find the music, and I don't see many bands doing that the same way now. Like, Misha put out music for years like that, and that's how people got to know Periphery eventually, was because of that Bulb shit. And I don't even know if you ever even listened to that stuff back in the day.
Well, yeah, dude, that's the whole reason why the Misha and Animals thing happened. Well, Tosin thing happened because I auditioned for Periphery.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah, that's how. When I went to go meet Misha, well, I heard the stuff online, and I was like, this is really good. Like, how the fuck is this kid doing this in his fucking basement? I hadn't heard production like that. That wasn't from like a major studio, so
it was like Meshuggah.
Yeah, I was intrigued, and I was just like, who the hell is this kid?
Yeah,
you know. I didn't want to do metal, but I was just intrigued at how good it was.
Right.
You know, how interesting it was. It was like Meshuggah influenced, but newer, you know. and the production was just phenomenal. That for what I was hearing, and I knew that this was a home recording, you know.
Yeah.
So when I first went to meet Misha, Tosin happened to be visiting from Atlanta, and I was like, "Yo, come with me to this dude's house." And showed him Periphery, and you know,
They just became friends. So, going back now, because I don't really know this story, how did you and Tosin meet initially? And were you also in Reflux?
No.
Okay, so what's that story as far as you and Tosin?
So Tosin and I were in a band called PSI
Mm-hmm.
back in Silver Spring, DC area. Reflux was another band that was also in the scene. Ash Avildsen, now owner of Sumerian Records, was the lead singer of that band.
Right.
When PSI broke up, Tosin went to Reflux. I quit music and went to New York, and you know, was living the New York life for a couple of years, and Tosin was to the Reflux. We just stayed in touch though. You know, at that point we were just friends.
Right.
And when I moved back to DC. He was living in Atlanta. And it was like around maybe 2006 at this point, 2006, 2007. And he already had the idea of Animals as Leaders kind of in the works. He comes to visit, and he's, you know, we're chilling at my house, and I'm playing guitar, and he sees me doing all sorts of crazy shit. He was like, all right, well, I guess this could be a guy to play the animal shit. So back then, he was just like, yo, if I do this thing, would you want to play? I'm like, yeah, sure. You know, at that point, I had given up on academia and trying to figure out a normal career, and I was like, all right, I'm actually going to do music.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was like, all right, well, let me know whenever you're ready. Like, I'll be here chilling.
Yeah.
And yeah.
So when did he actually circle back for this project?
Well, I guess when we started meeting up and everything. you
Okay.
know? And then, you know, there was all these gaps in between. And then it wasn't until the first BT BAM tour, maybe like a month or two before that, is that it was like, all right,
This is gonna be real.
yeah.
Like, and you had to basically.
The funny thing, yeah. So he got the offer. We were hanging out at my house, and you know, we couldn't find a drummer. So we were just like, should we do it? Should we not do it? What the fuck? And at the time, he was thinking, he was thinking about moving to New York and going to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember just being like, yo, let's just do this for a year, and everything will be different. And literally, like, you know, the first tour led to like another 2 tours, and shit just kept piling up.
Yeah.
And shit has been different ever since.
I remember that. Well, and was it the second tour that you guys did was with us?
Correct.
And Human Abstract and Veil?
It was Circle of Contempt.
Oh, that's right.
You guys.
And Veil.
Veil. And that's
Right. Yeah. And that was what, 2009 or 10?
2010.
2010. Which was so cool.
I think
for
2010. Either that or 2011. Like early 2010.
No, it had to be 10. It had to be 10 because Alex Boys was
early 2010.
Yeah. That was our first bandwagon tour, I think. Maybe.
Fuck no. We were all in vans. Dude.
Were we all in vans?
Hell yeah.
Damn. My timeline is all off.
We were all in vans. You don't remember like all the blizzards that we had to drive through?
Yeah, I guess so.
We got stuck in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, or whatever, because there was a blizzard. We couldn't drive.
Oh, that's right. And you know what? I remember. So we had Brandon Bateman.
Yeah.
On the show recently, and I was telling the story how like when we were leaving his place, I got stuck on the ice hill. I don't know if I ever told this story. We were leaving his place, and I was driving the van, and I was like, "Oh, I can get up this hill. It's fine." And as we start going up the hill in the van and trailer, we realize it's completely just covered with like 2 inches of ice. And the hill was like a serious grade. And I had to stop and put on the brake, and luckily we didn't start sliding. But it probably took 3 hours for us to go inside the house of whoever random nice neighbor was right there. We were filling up buckets of hot water and dumping the hot water under our tires to melt the ice so that we could slowly reverse down the hill somehow. Or I don't even know if we reversed it. We like somehow turned it around and we got it down the hill, but I fucked up big time with that. But anyway, as an aside, so it's interesting how it was just kind of like let's see what happens. Let's do this. And then it's turned into what it's turned into.
Right.
So I didn't even know that you were in New York or even looking to do other work outside of music. What was, so where were you living in New York City?
Yeah, I moved to New York City, just went to some community college over there, you know. At that point, I'd been doing music pretty much all my life and haven't known anything else. And I remember doing a bunch of like Weekend Warrior tours, and there was just one show in Pawtucket that I remember going home and being like, I hate the people that are around me, and I was just like, I gotta do something different. So I just made a huge change in my life at the time. You know, I was like 21. At the time I was 21. It's like, all right, if I don't change now, it's gonna be too late, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I quit music. I was like, I'm not gonna go to school. I'm gonna study sciences or some shit. And I did that.
Yeah. So what are some of your other interests outside of music? Because I don't even know. I mean, I know business is obviously something, and I know you were riding for a long time, bikes.
Yeah.
You know, but as far as like school, or even if right now, if you couldn't do this anymore, where would you go? What would you do?
I don't know. I think for the longest time I was trying to think of other ideas, what else could I do? But after a while, music just becomes kind of everything. Everything that's been good about my life has been due to music. Anything interesting, anything like unique and everything, all about that's been about music. So at this point, I kind of have committed myself to doing music in one form or other. It's like whenever I've tried to not do music, I just get sucked back into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I forget it. It's easy to forget that you have something unique. It's like you almost need other people to highlight it to you sometimes, but
because
you're not
live with
always
it.
around it. You're kind of on your own a lot of times.
Which is it's funny. I feel like we've talked about this in certain ways on the podcast before, but it's hard to identify or be all self-sucky about your own talents.
Right.
And the things that you're naturally drawn to, because I think to a lot of people that we know on this tour, even it's just what they do. You know what I mean? Like music is just a part of us, but it's not something that we walk around thinking about. Oh, we're drummers and we're guitar players and we're this and we're that. It's we're all. I mean, the day-to-day workings of who we are as people. We're just people. With personalities and interests and love, we love for other things and whatever. But it's funny. It's like you said. It's like you kind of need other people to remind you sometimes. This matters, or you do it differently, or you have something that you bring to the table. Because it's very easy to have self-doubt or be your own worst critic, I guess is the point.
Exactly.
Because it's tough when, especially in this genre, when you're around so many fucking amazing musicians. I watch your drummer play every night, and I'm just all right, I'm just gonna stay in my lane and do what I do, and that's that, because that kid is on a whole nother level, and we've talked about him before on the podcast too in that regard. So anyway, so before we get into more band stuff, I'm just curious, and we've had some questions about it, where does your musical talent come from? And because you're not only just a fantastic guitar player and songwriter, but you produce music, and you've produced different styles of music. I mean, producing hip-hop means you have an understanding of rhythm and beats and keyboards and other software and other sounds. So where did that start, and how did you even get into that stuff?
Well, with music, I started pretty young. At the age of 5, my dad just put me at, piano lessons. At the age of 6, I started playing guitar. With guitar, it probably wasn't until maybe 8 or 9 that I was actually okay, I'm gonna, take my lessons serious. My dad was very like, yo, you have to go. I didn't really like it at first, you know. It was hard. I'm just like big guitar, you know, little hands or whatever.
Was it classical guitar?
Yeah, with where I started was, they just kind of just started you off with classical guitars. It was like a flamenco store.
Okay.
So the owner of the store was a flamenco player. All the other teachers there weren't flamenco teachers, but they just kind of had nylon guitars all over the place. So you learned on that. Well, anyways, yeah, it wasn't until, I don't know, 9 or so that I can start, you know, seeing my own progress and being like, oh, I'm a little bit better than the other students, so that's cool. Or that see the enthusiasm of my teachers being like, wanting to teach me longer, telling me to come in extra, you know, earlier than I'm supposed to, just to practice, sort of thing. And it was cool. It was like, all right, cool. It's like, I have something that's kind of cool and unique. And then, yeah, I just remember being pretty young and being able to play pretty hard stuff. My brother, who was 6 years older than me, also started playing guitar at the same time that I did. And the level of progress, or the rate of progress that I was going at versus his rate, was pretty crazy, you know, to the point where he was just like, my little brother is just way better than, you know, at me at guitar. Like,
yeah.
I'm not even gonna try.
And that was probably something really cool for you to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as a kid, you're just like, all right, cool. I'm better than my older brother doing this.
Right.
Hell yeah!
Right.
I'm gonna be extra sick at it. I remember one of my brother's friends, buddy named Bill Lord. He liked playing guitar too. He came from kind of a musical family. His brother played drums, and he was into Rush and Yes and Kansas and Van Halen and shit like that. And early on, I remember he would be like, "Yo, check out this band, check out this band, check out this band, check out this band." Like fucking, I don't know, being 10 or 11 years old, you know, checking out Dream Theater, fucking King Diamond.
That's where I was.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. King Diamond and Merciful Fate were, for a good couple years, like my favorite, you know, albums to listen to.
Yeah.
Like my dad got me into it.
I would have to agree. Probably like a good year to 3 years.
Yeah.
It was like a good Merciful Fate.
That's so funny. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I had my pretty, you know, extreme metal. I was all about like Overkill, Creator and shit like that.
Yeah.
But
I got into Racer X too, which is funny because it's like totally a guitar band. But I got into Racer X, and then their Racer X drummer, Scott Travis, ended up being the Judas Priest drummer. And like that opened me up to a whole nother world of rock music and, you know, that whole metal kind of scene. At
the store that I would take lessons at, the other teachers that they had were also fucking amazing, like other than the owner. There was this one guy named Stuart Payne who had an amazing curriculum, like for beginner to intermediate to second intermediate to advanced to really advanced, and it was all based off of songs that, you know, we would know. I remember the first, it was like a huge binder filled with Beatles music, and that was my essentially intro to like kind of rockish guitar. From that went to the second era of the Beatles, you know, like the hippie years, and then after that we started incorporating Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath and shit like that. After that we brought in the Racer X, the Iron Maiden, the Dokken, and crazy shit like that. So he was kind of a cool, you know, path to check out all these crazy shredders.
Mm-hmm.
And it was pretty awesome, like I was pretty amazing teacher.
And around that time, were you sort of balancing playing still this classical flamenco style and grabbing the electric guitar and learning that kind of style too?
I think I got my first electric at like 11 or 12, I want to say. Or maybe like, actually I think I was like in the 6th grade, 12, that I got it. So I hadn't played any real electric until then. Any electric stuff, we were just playing it on a, on, 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 a, Yeah, it wasn't. Probably by 12, I got the electric, but they weren't really focused on me trying to play metal. Like all the lessons were very like, you know, riff based, or this is how we bend it properly, this is how we slide properly, this is, you know, what a hammer-on actually feels like, or, you know, a variety of things.
Technique, though.
Technique.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, we would learn songs, but it was never really metal. Like I would go home, and at that point I was already like listening to, you know, Iron Maiden or fucking Motley Crue, Sepultura, I think even, like early, like 90, 91.
The Pantera era started.
Yeah, Pantera, Cowboys from Hell was out, and I was just like, there's nothing better than this. This is cool. Like, I mean, listening to Judas Priest and stuff was cool, but
no, that took it to a different level. Yeah, like Pantera was, to me, they were the first real like gent band.
No, I would say Fear Factory is the first gent band.
You think so?
Yeah, I think Pantera's like, they were that first of like that just don't care fucking, I don't know, they had their own fucking thing.
They did have their own thing. I guess I just mean in terms of like how percussive Dime's guitar playing was, and how Vinny would always play the right grooves. It wasn't, Vinny was always about groove, and Dime's playing always had those, you know, like those chugs that you didn't really hear.
I can see what you're saying. You know,
but I'm not saying you're wrong at all about Fear Factory, because that the way that their shit was in sync or syncopated, you know, was absolutely, if you go back, was they're
kind of the one of the godfathers of it.
Absolutely, absolutely,
indirectly.
Yeah, but I think about like, I don't know, A New Level. And when the groove kicks in, I mean, it's so in sync. Guitar, drums, bass, everything was just so tight. Anyway, we don't need to. Well, we can talk about that all fucking day.
Do a whole Pantera podcast.
Yeah, we got to get a whole bunch of other people from this tour on that too. But okay, so that, I mean, that's cool. And then I guess going back a little bit further, back to when you first started to even play music, you know, like obviously your dad put you down and said, hey, play piano, and then, hey, play guitar. But were they super supportive of you going down this career path?
Yes and no. So my dad is a singer, but he wasn't a very successful singer. He just kind of stayed in the local scene, but he spent a lot of money, you know, making music videos, albums, and, you know, ads here and there. So to my mom, she was just like, yo, you're just wasting your money. So to, you know, looking at me being like, hey mom, I'm gonna do this metal thing, she's like, fuck, like, don't do it. You know, just so she wasn't like, you know, she was supportive and being like, yo, I love you, yes, go do it, but there was no, you know, passionate encouragement from her part. And my dad's side, he's kind of like, he's a little weird. He's like, you should be a singer. You know, I'm like, well, I don't really sing. He's like, well, we're gonna do this instrumental metal band thing. And he's like, well, but, you know, are you guys gonna like perform for singers? What's the deal? Singers hire you? We're like, no, we're the act. We're the thing.
It's like, instrumental music. Yeah.
It's like, well, why don't you sing? I was like, well, Pop, I'm not a singer. I was like, no, but you could do it. You know, he still asks every album. It's like, yo, you gonna put vocals? You do some vocals, dude? I'm like, Pop.
No, it's working.
No,
but
well, yeah. I mean, they didn't get now. When it was first starting, they were very questionable. You know,
right.
I mean, I had quit music, moved to New York, moved back to DC, went to college, was working at the restaurant, quit the restaurant, and going back to music, you know, it seems like didn't really know what the hell I was doing, and you know,
they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this instrumental band?"
Well, yeah, we're like, okay, now you're older. You sure you want to go back to music also? You know,
Right.
My dad was kind of gung ho because it was music, but his thing was like, you should sing. Just go sing, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started doing the band thing, and then you know, I think the success of the band happened fairly quick, and they started seeing that it was like, okay, there's some. It isn't just a normal metal band.
Mm-hmm.
It's not definitely wasn't metal bands when I was like 19.
Right.
And yeah, they've been to a few shows and they could see the point of what we're trying to do now. So now they're way more supportive. They're like super cool.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, and they're cool guitar player, rock star uncle sort of vibes, and
Yeah.
they fucking love it, and it's cool.
That's awesome.
So now it's a whole different thing, but at the beginning it was a little took a lot of convincing, if you will.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And so your parents are first generation?
No.
Okay, so
I'm first generation. They're
being here.
Yeah. They moved.
Okay.
They moved from El Salvador. They met in the U.S.
Oh, okay.
They met in the U.S., but they moved from El Salvador as immigrants.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually.
When was that? How old were they?
I think they were both like 19, 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both the same age. So I think literally they came right around the same time.
Got it.
It wasn't until 8 years after they both came that they met.
Did they both settle in D.C. initially?
Yeah. I don't know why Salvadorians decided to move to D.C., but at the time, D.C. just had the largest population of Salvadorians outside of El Salvador.
Is it still that way in the States?
Sort of.
That noise is the bus door and opening up for anybody listening.
I'm very sorry about that.
That's Jake. Say hi, Jake.
Hi, how are you? Are you having a good talk?
We're having a great talk.
All right.
Sweet.
You boys have a good time. Actually, I'm just gonna, since I've interrupted the whole thing, I'm gonna go for that too.
It's no problem. This is real life.
Love you guys.
Yeah, buddy. And the spaceship door is closed now again. But is it still the biggest population in the States?
I don't know if it's either DC or LA,
Okay.
but I think DC has a lot of Salvadorians.
Yeah.
Growing up, most Hispanic kids in my school were Salvadorian, and it was kind of just the vibe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a little more mixed now than it was before, back then. But so yeah, they moved to DC for I don't know what reasons, and when they met, they had me. I got to be born in DC. It's kind of sick. I like it.
Which is great. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have an older brother, and hey, Mish. You can say hi.
I see my backpack.
This is a very live podcast.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Misha.
All the faces are showing up. But are you the youngest out of all your brothers and sisters?
Second to youngest.
Okay.
I have a younger sister.
Okay.
So yeah, I have older siblings. One sister is from my dad, another brother and another sister from my mom, and then me and my younger sister are from
both your parents. Right. Okay. And then when did they? Because you mentioned the restaurant.
Correct.
People don't know that it's your family restaurant. So how did that start, and how old were you? Was that already going on when you were born, or?
No, I think they opened their restaurant in '82. I was 2,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't really remember a whole lot. I just remember eating all the foods and being raised in the restaurant.
It's crazy, like taking on the huge mountain of challenge of opening a restaurant in someplace like DC and having a 2-year-old and other kids. But I guess at the time your older siblings were able to sort of help with certain things. And were your parents around, or were you literally raised in the restaurant?
I mean, my parents were around. We were definitely raised in the restaurant, and we definitely had like nanny vibes, you know. But yeah, there was a lot of just hanging out at the restaurant, you know.
Yeah.
It was just what we did.
Yeah.
It was either that or, I mean, we just couldn't be at home alone, so they just had to have the kids at the restaurant.
Yeah, which is cool.
Yeah.
What's the restaurant called again?
The restaurant's called El Tamarindo. It's in Adams Morgan. And when they opened it at the time, actually, the neighborhood was hood.
Really?
As fuck. Yeah, it was pretty bad. I remember there was people telling my dad that he was crazy for trying to open up a business there, but he had this lawyer friend that was just kind of in the know with the neighborhood, you know, politics and whatnot, and he was like, look, there are going to be a lot of changes to the neighborhood, just stick it out. And for a good while, the restaurant just kind of blew up. Like, it was the spot that Adams Morgan in DC, where the restaurant is, kind of became a cool, hip, you know, main nightlife section of the city. Now there's tons of other areas, but at the time it was like, you know, crazy. We would have crazy lines outside of the restaurant, and it was a huge success.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. You know,
I've been there. I mean, when we were auditioning, or not auditioning, when we were practicing. I mean, I think that's the only time I went, but we went for a whole, you know, family dinner kind of thing. It was great.
I just took that for right before Thanksgiving. I took our crew to
Nice
dinner there, so it was cool.
Yeah, I'm sure that's always it's cool. Yeah. Well, that's great. Okay, so do you think that some of your business acumen, or at least the ability to sort of manage internally what's going on, came from being in a restaurant at all, or like being around a business like
absolutely. I mean, being raised in the restaurant, you know, like any, you know, I don't know if you've been around kids, but they always know better than the parent. You know, they're always trying to figure it out. And I remember trying to figure things out better around the restaurant early on. You know, it's just like, oh, they're doing this. It'd be more efficient if we could do this, this, and that. Just because I'm a kid at a restaurant trying to not be bored, you know? At the time, there was no fucking iPads. There was no... You just looked around and saw what to do, you know?
Right, how can I make something more efficient here?
And then, you know, we would always see our parents kind of just manage employees and see, you know, the difference on how you can talk to and how to deal with multiple personalities, you know, because I think in a managerial position or as a business owner, you essentially are trying to figure out how to deal with people.
Right.
You know, and do it in a way where it's beneficial for you and for them. And, you know.
I think it's something that we've talked about a lot on the podcast, is the service industry in particular is so great for preparing people to deal with personalities.
I mean, you get them all.
And you get them all unexpectedly. You never know what you're going to get.
And you get them all on both sides. I mean, at the restaurant, you would deal with employees who are fucking crazy also. As crazy as the customers that come in there.
Right.
You know? So, yeah, having to deal with both of them is I mean, I think it helped, obviously, with dealing with some stuff with the music side.
Well, yeah, and so...
With the business side of touring and, you know, of dealing with staff and crew. I mean, you have crew, we have crew, and we're 8-9 years into our career, you know, this band career, and it's been a while that you've had the same type of guys, because you know that type of person is hard to come by,
right.
Or you plain just don't like a whole bunch of other people just because you don't like them,
right?
You know, and that's kind of a thing to deal with on tour. And I think that sort of thing it might have helped out here and there, or I think so. I don't know. I think it's shaped my personality, because I also do that with everyone, you know.
Yeah. Well, you're personable in general, and I think you're able to strike up conversations with people because you've had to from a very young age.
Yeah.
people asking you, "Oh, is this your family's place? Oh, what do you do here?" You know, I'm sure you got that when you were a little kid, even. You know, so you're dealing with all sorts of people, and so is it correct that Animals as Leaders is still like self-managed at this point?
Technically, yes. It's managed by the three of us. You know, we all think differently. We all have our fortes. We all have our weaknesses, and I think we all know what we want best for ourselves. Whether it's, you know, missing out on, you know, this better slot on this festival or whatever, but I think ultimately we feel like we're intelligent enough and adult enough to kind of, you know, be responsible for ourselves. I don't think the industry is what it used to be.
Right.
We've had management, and, you know, anytime that they were like, this is a standard, and we're like, well, that standard doesn't feel okay for us. So yeah, we have had management for most of our career.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I bring that subject up because I see so many questions come through in all sorts of different arenas about, hey, I'm in a band, when do I need a manager? Or, hey, I'm an artist, like, do I need a manager? When should we shop for that? And my response is always like, well, you only need a manager when you need a manager.
Right. Yeah.
So in your opinion, when do you need a manager? And for you guys, will it ever be something that you do again, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we always constantly talk about having management. I think good management will do a lot for the band. The experience that we've had hasn't been that beneficial. I think it's going to be unique for every band. There's a lot of energy that happens to be with Animals as Leaders. There's a lot of things that come our ways with just by the organic, you know, energy of the band, or the organic success of the band, that we didn't when we had management, we didn't feel like it was, you know, anything new was being brought to the table. Like, we were just doing the work and then kind of just paying a percentage of the work that we were doing to somebody else just to have them represent us.
Right.
I don't think that's the case for everybody. You know, I think some bands succeed doing that, some bands don't. I think some bands need management for a variety of reasons, you know. We're a very instrument-centric band. I think most management tends to deal with bands that have vocals and, you know, use their connections tend to be more connected with
more mainstream
type of stuff, where for us didn't really quite work out. You know, we know we're not going to be mainstream. We have a cool edge, you know, that seems to be mainstream, but in our genre, you know, I don't think we're never going to be on that Avenged Sevenfold level sort of thing. As far as like pop image, you know.
Well, you're not going to purposely write radio hits.
Correct.
You're not going to seek out the opportunities to be in the top 40 list of songs. Correct. You know, you're going to write the music that you write, and it's likely not going to fall into that category. But I think from outsider's perspective, especially now being removed for so long from your band, it's very similar to what I see with us. You guys are very strong-minded individuals. You're very smart. You're very good at your instruments. You know your direction. You know your lane. You know what you want to do, like you just described. And, I mean, you're also not afraid to say no to a manager. And what I see a lot of bands doing is hiring a manager and basically saying, here are the keys to the kingdom. You run our business, and you're the boss. And that is not the kind of relationship you should have with anyone that a band hires to work for them. And that's the difference that I think a lot of younger bands and younger artists don't necessarily, it's a point they don't grasp. When you hire a manager, you're hiring a manager to work for you, not asking a manager to hire you.
Yeah, I think that's where in the industry, I think that's where it becomes of a weird dynamic. I mean, like you're saying, you hire management and they're technically working for you, but more often than not, it feels the other way. Jeopardy.
Sorry, am I interrupting? I just need to grab something.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff's here, everybody. Say hi to Jeff Holcomb.
Hey, what's up, guys? Nice to talk to you again.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah. All right, I'll see you guys later.
Okay. It's kind of funny. We've had, like, the people who have come back here, Jake, Misha, and Jeff, have all been on the podcast.
That's funny.
So we got some nice cameos in this episode. It's great.
So, with management also, we would finish tours and we were like, okay, we have to pay this to management. No one is going home with that amount of money. That's not cool. So we were just like, nah, we're not going to do that.
Did you, and hopefully this doesn't come off as a good or bad example. I'm just curious, like, and you don't have to share if this is too personal, but when you guys did have management, were there tours where you came home with a nice chunk and you literally looked at what that chunk would look like after paying out a manager who you felt didn't do enough work to earn that? At that point, would you guys say, no, we're not paying you this amount?
Absolutely. We had management, and it was the last tour that we did with BT BAM. We got the budget back, and it was full commission. They were going to go home with several, tens of thousands of dollars, and I remember calling them and being like, "Yo, guys, you guys did absolutely nothing for us to get this tour.
You got the tour because of your close friendship with BT
This is our
BAM.
5th tour with the band.
Right.
That at the time it was the 5th tour with the band. It's like there's absolutely no reason why the management should take full commission. So we made an arrangement. It was just like, okay, well, you're just gonna get a 4th member cut, which for management, considering as a 3-piece band, that 4th member cut seems a little bit better than a 15% commission. As management, it's not that bad. It's better than being in a 6-member band and taking a 7th member cut. You know what I mean? Like they would never do that sort of thing. So I think they were able to finagle it for their, because they still went home with a decent amount of money, and it was like, looking back now, it's like, but why though?
Right, and but was that sort of the end of that relationship in the sense that both parties probably looked at it and said, you know what, like, you guys don't need us, and we don't need you, and
I think it was just like a bad pairing, because there's definitely times where I think we could use management. There's definitely, we're musicians at the end of the day, and we like procrastinating, and sometimes not to our benefit. Where I think sometimes management could help, but again, the band just has this, a lot of organic opportunities that just come to the band because of the nature of it. That is not the norm for, I think, a lot of metal bands, and I think the management that we tend to encounter is, one, not used to that either, and doesn't really know what to do with us.
Yeah, well, it's such a unique project, but I think what's been very cool to witness myself about Animals as Leaders, even from very early on, it's the opportunities that came to you guys because of the uniqueness of the style and the music and the sound. I remember when you guys first got the Thrice tour offer, and that was just strictly like, hey, we like you guys. Like, I remember Thrice just simply being fans of you and saying, let's go on tour. And that's happened with, like, you toured with the Deftones in that same kind of way, like,
Yeah, I mean, I think Meshuggah, all these bands that have taken us out, I think was just a level of like, we think it's cool. Which is awesome.
It's great, and it's it's what it should be in so many ways, and I think it's a good lesson for a lot of these younger bands to try to wrap their head around, because all you guys were doing was being authentic to your sound and your music, and then doing a good job of performing it live. And if a younger band sticks to that sort of formula rule that is unique to them, that can happen too. And I see so many younger artists and bands that are just trying to be like other people instead of just fucking, this is who we are and fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural for that to happen. I think we've seen it in all the...
We've done it.
We've done it.
Yeah.
I mean, the band that I was in when I was, with Tosin, we sounded like Sepultura meets Slipknot meets Pantera,
Right.
But, I don't know. I think at the time we were still just trying to be unique. We're trying to create something unique, not necessarily trying to copy. We were trying to... at the time, it was almost like we're figuring out how to refine our skills of how to borrow and make it your own.
Right.
Because ultimately, you're still going to be copying from people, but it's how you combine it to make it your own thing is what's your craft at the end of the day. That's why Tosin sounds the way he does. That's why I sound the way I do. Misha and Mark and so on. It's how you borrow and put it into your own application, but still trying to be unique and still trying to write for yourself.
Yeah.
I think is kind of the main thing. I think there might be just thousands of people who just don't get that. I don't know why, I think for so many like subgenres of metal that have come out, I think there's always, maybe a total of like 1 to 5 bands tops in each subgenre that kind of define that. 500 other bands come and sound like them, none of them survive, only these 5 continue.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing that just happens from era to era.
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree with you. You definitely see it. It's so interesting when you see a new band break through in some of whatever genre it is, and I think we've sort of seen that happen slowly in this world.
New peripheries and new animals.
Yeah,
like baby animals and baby peripheries all over the place.
Yeah, it's cool, especially when it is authentic and done the appropriate way. So
not so much when it's just
not so much when it's the same thing. So there's a couple of things I want to sort of jump back and forth from. So one is the other style of music that you were producing for a while for work. How did you get into producing hip hop and that kind of...
I got into hip hop. So when I was in college, I moved back to DC. I was going to GW and working full time at the restaurant. I was bored with life. I was just like, I'm going to start taking guitar lessons again. At that point, I remembered that I was like, oh shit, I'm pretty good. And then I was just like, all right, well, I kind of miss playing on stage. And my brother was playing bass in a hip hop band with a bunch of dudes from my high school, ironically. And they were like decent. I was like, this is chill. I was just like, maybe I'll just join them. Play some simple licks that I don't have to really practice or really rehearse and just kind of go have a good time. But the band started just getting really better and better. Like the rehearsals were really good. We started doing shows and it was like the shows were 300, 500 people. And I was like, whoa, this is fun. And I kind of just started falling in love with music and playing live again. At the rehearsals when I first joined the band, my buddy Authentic, who was kind of the MC, the rapper of the band, he was the one making all these beats at home, and he'd just bring it to the band and be like, yo, I made this beat, let's do it the band version. So I was hearing that and I'm like, oh, it'd be way sicker if you could do this. And my creative head just started wanting to do my own beats. So at that point I just went out and bought like an M-Box and started making beats and started like wanting to bring ideas to the band, being like, yo, I made this hip-hop beat, let's make it it's like you can start singing here, you can start singing, rapping on this part,
So you essentially got into producing and arranging and music, like basically music directing for this band.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't like music director because it still was like a band. Like everybody was just like, no, I think we should, you know, cut it here and cut it there, but at least bringing the initial idea of being like, this is a song that separates it from this song, you know. We should make it a band version, and I liked bringing a whole other flavor to it, other than just what the rapper was bringing as well, because he was very just hip hop, and then I knew that I could do hip hop, but add extra shit. I would like add polyrhythms and shit. It was kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, it was chill. So I got into that, and then when I finally, you know, completely quit working at the restaurant and immersed myself in music, I was like, well, I know how to make beats now. Let me just start recording rappers. And I started like meeting fucking guys in DC and started doing a little bit of things at my house. And then I got that studio job that we were talking about earlier.
How did that happen? What was the studio and how did you get the room there?
It was a Craigslist ad. It was a Craigslist ad. It was like hip hop studio in DC in front of Howard University Hospital called Listen Vision Studios. I go and drop off my CD, and I hadn't heard from them for maybe like a month or so, maybe like kind of 5 weeks. I had kind of given up, and they hit me back up and they're like, yo, can you come for a job interview? I was like, sure. Go in for the job interview. By the end of the job interview, I'm smoking out of an apple with the owner in the back of the studio, and I was like, okay, I got the job, you know? So, and then from there, I was just in there hours, and I just got like good at making the beats.
I remember that. Was there a particular DAW that you started working with when you got your Mbox initially?
Pro Tools.
And did you know it at the time, or did you just kind of teach yourself?
Yes and no. When I was 19, or like right after high school, I did a recording engineering course at Omega Studios in Rockville, Maryland.
Yeah.
I think Marquides
went there, yeah.
Went there, right? Yeah. So, and then I did like an intro to Pro Tools, and Pro Tools back then was just like all black and white.
I remember.
Like, nothing what it looks like now. And then I got to learn on a real console. So I already knew, you know, signal flow and, you know, acoustics and whatnot, and I was like, all right, Mbox, cool. This is, you know, obviously I don't have a studio, so I'm just gonna start with this, and got some monitors and made my little home studio, you know.
Yeah, that's how it happens. Yeah, and you piece it together one thing at a time. It's like you have to go out and buy all the fucking gear at once.
Yeah, you know, and learning it was also like, I mean, I hadn't done any real recording in fucking years. I was just going off of what I remembered. YouTube wasn't around, so you couldn't just go online and like look up shit. It was between like hitting up my homie and just experimenting on Pro Tools and figuring out, you know, how to resolve the problems I was encountering.
Yeah. I remember so many of my friends, when it became a digital thing, way more than an analog thing or using the straight up board. Like, I remember so much time spent in the studio was troubleshooting.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'd be like, yeah, let's, you know, we recorded this whole drum take, and, you know, we had this song in the works, and the producer would take an hour, or the engineer would take an hour to figure out like something new on this new technology, which eventually now it's like you have
it's like
everybody's well, yeah, and like the people that are good at it are fucking good at it, you know, they're real good at it. But I was just curious. Yeah. So, okay, fast forward now and where you guys are with the band. You know, we've talked a lot. So having Jake on the podcast, having Misha on the podcast, the only person in the band now who I haven't had from Periphery is Spencer. And I want to try to get him in the next day before this tour is over. But, you know, we talk a lot about band communication, band dynamics, how we have learned over the years how to function. And you guys have been through different members, you know, like over the years, you know. I mean, I was very early, but like Naveen to Matt,
right.
And auditioning people and deciding. I'm sure there was at some point where you guys maybe thought of having a bass player and decided not to. I don't know if that was ever a real conversation, but what I'm getting at is for you, and maybe this is more framed in an advice kind of question is, what do you think the most important thing for a band to, as far as communication goes, or for a band to stay together and have longevity, I guess is my question. What do you think is the most important thing now that you guys have been this unit between you, Matt, and Tosin for how many years? 6? 5, 6?
Yeah, 6 years. I would say treating each other equally. You know, when Matt joined early on, we try to, you know, include him in a lot of the decision making, or a lot of, you know, we didn't really hide too much from him. Even though he was a new member, we let him know, it's like, look, we're trying to do this to kind of try to make you feel like an equal. It's going to be a long time before you kind of feel like one, because Tosin and I have already known each other by like 15 years at that point or something, you know.
And you guys are both, you're older.
We're older, you know, we're 10 years
together,
older.
right? Yeah.
We've had, you know, relationships, different bands, and different career choices and whatnot.
There's real history.
Yeah. But, you know, I think early on, you know, we just try to make it a point to kind of, everybody's opinion is substantial.
Mm-hmm.
I think being a 3-piece has been kind of a little blessing when it comes to decision making also as a band. Because there'll be often times where I'll disagree with both of them, or Tosin will disagree with me and Matt, you know, and we just take it into a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And we try to, at that point, it's just like, okay, well, I'm in a business with you. I trust you. I trust that your decisions, you know, we can disagree, but ultimately this is a group effort, and if 2 of us kind of feel one way, go with it. If we're wrong, then we all fell down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if we're right, we all fucking won. You know?
Yeah, you all win. Yeah.
So I think that's kind of something that we've tried to focus on. It's just really trying to treat each other equally. You know, everybody has their fortes, and you know, as far as perception into the world, you know, Tosin's the popular guy, Matt's the fucking crazy drummer guy. You know, I'm just me, and but inside the band, the dynamic, everybody's pretty much an equal, and you know, everybody has their forte. Sometimes, you know, if I say something or if I make an executive decision, no one will say anything because they know that I'm in that position to make it, or if they need to do it.
Yeah. Well, and it just, again, from an outside perspective, and at the same time, knowing you guys, how I've always perceived the inner workings has been, you know, like, you are the business guy. Like, I know that you and I have had many conversations about both of our bands, because a lot of us in Periphery have our fortes too, and everybody does business, but you and I have definitely talked about ideas. We've talked about our bands touring together. We've exchanged text messages about doing this show here, this tour here, and I always perceive you to be the one in the band that's sort of leading that charge. And I know too, just from communicating with you and communicating with our management and our booking agents, it's like you are the point person for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. I'm curious, because I don't really know, like, when it comes to the business side, what is everybody's forte? Do you, like, is, like, in Periphery, like, what's great about Mark a lot of times in our band conversations is that he listens, and he's very reserved, and he waits till the very end to make his point, and usually it's pretty profound. Same thing with Jake. You know, Jake is very, very good at looking at the big picture but keeping his mouth shut until it's really time to say something, whereas like me and Misha are both very vocal and very out there, and we share our opinions and wear it on our sleeves. And I'm just curious, like, if there are strengths between the 3 of you that you really admire.
Yeah, I think it's like Matt is the more detailed guy. I'm more like the day-to-day, get it done, figure it out kind of sort of thing. Tosin is kind of the ideas guy, you know, like, well, it's kind of that way. It's like, I think Tosin has a lot of cool creative ideas. We kind of implement them. Matt is good with numbers and kind of being anal with little details. And, you know, when he wants to look at merch numbers and bank account numbers, we're like, by all means, you know, do your thing. You let us know what you find, you know?
Yeah.
you know, as far as like the bus, hiring the crew, backdrop, you know, all the production stuff, Tosin and Matt just showed up for a show, and all that stuff is already done.
Because you're really handling that stuff.
Yeah, you know, that's just the way that I think is just, I'm like, oh, wait, I'm about to go on tour. I know these two dudes aren't going to do it, so I might as well just do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We've done enough tours already where, I mean, before it would be like you know, there's an email chain and it's like, yo, what lights do you want? What lights do you want? Do you want to do this one? Do you want to do this one? Do you want to do this one? At this point, it's like, whatever. I'm just going to pick the light package. It'll be fine. You'll look great, guys. Don't worry about it.
Right.
You know, I'm up there with you. I'm trying to look all sick too. So, got you.
Yeah.
You know? And that's kind of the way it works.
That's good though. I mean, it's great. It's so awesome to have just three of you guys because it's less opinions overall.
Well, yeah, you know, when people ask us about you mentioned about bass players and whatnot. Obviously, we could find a sick ass bass player. I think we've learned that it's a benefit. That's what I was saying about a little, you know, kind of a random blessing to be a three-piece because decision making is easier.
Sure.
You know,
when
when there's no ties.
Right.
And any musician that we add that we're going to, one personality and their ability is going to come with a lot of ego and a lot of personality.
Yeah.
So we
you
know.
You guys have strong fucking personalities.
Hell yeah, we do, you know? So, you know, when we get pissed, we get fucking pissed, you know? And I think we wouldn't expect that from anybody else that joined the band. But that means more butting heads. And I don't think we want that, you know?
I can totally relate to that. I mean, after Nolly exited the band, we made a very clear decision that being a five-piece is great because of
That
votes,
reason.
right?
Three
Votes
to-
are great.
yeah.
Having an odd number. I mean, you know, it's funny. It's such an obvious thing, but when I had Band Happy and we had to build this board of directors, we needed an odd number on the board so that there was never a tie. So, which is really interesting now that Periphery is in the position to have 5 members, you know, and have very strong personalities. But it's great to know that, one, as you said, everybody's an equal, and two, it's a democracy in that sense, and you just kind of have to go with the vote and trust each other.
Yeah, I mean...
And trust the strengths.
You know, there'll be a decision that's wrong at one point, and, you know, the band lost a lot of money collectively, and hey,
yeah,
that's a decision that we did together, and sometimes we make a lot of money together, you know, so...
Yeah. It's like sports. It's like, you know, like somebody goes on the field and kicks a shitty field goal and loses the game, but the whole team contributed to the whole loss of the game.
Right.
You know, so you can't blame that one person. So that's interesting. So we have there's a bunch of questions that came in for you too. Some of which we've already kind of covered, but I want to dig into a couple here. So from the podcast's very good friend Kevin the drummer Goring, who's been actually on the podcast as well. He wanted to know, what do you do to stay busy career-wise when you're not on tour? Do you still do session work? Do you do lessons ever? Obviously, you have your side projects. Like, what do you do to keep yourself busy off the road?
I mainly try to write music, you know, exercise, and look for new inspirations, really. Like, I try to go to concerts a lot. I try to find new music. I'm constantly on, like, new music, you know, hunt.
Mm-hmm.
I think my attention span for music is shorter than it's ever been.
Me
know,
too.
Like, I can't listen to a CD more than 3-4 times now. You know, I don't have the same effect I used to have. So I'm constantly seeking new music.
Is there, speaking of that, so like one of our group members asked, his name's Josh Hempf, asked, is there a list of albums that are unrelated to metal that have had a profound effect, or even just newer music right now that you're digging?
Tigran Hamasyan,
Yeah.
Makrut, James Blake, I think he's phenomenal. Noisia, which is like, you know, drum and bass.
Crazy drum and bass. Yeah,
Crazy drum
awesome.
and bass. Yamandu Costa is a classical guitar player. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of them. I mean, most music that I listen to is not metal. So, yeah.
Yeah, me too. It's funny that how that works.
Yeah.
Let's see. Here's a question specifically about your side project. Do you think you'll ever make more music as Misties? And if so, would you like to collaborate with other people or feature other people on that album?
Yes and yes.
Cool.
I'm currently working on new music and currently talking with certain people to probably be on that album as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm excited for that. I remember when you put out the first record, it was just such a cool experience hearing your soul take on
That.
creation.
Yeah.
Because I hear it in Animals as Leaders, and I know that there's songs that are heavier influenced by what you do, but it's nice to hear your thing.
Yeah, well, the crazy thing about it too, like I was saying earlier, I was not planning on being in a metal band. Like, I was good with metal. Like, I was like, fuck. I mean, I wanted to go, when I remember auditioning for Perfect, being like, I'm just trying to meet these fools. Like, I don't know why it's calling it audition. I'm like, I just want to meet them. And so when I was, we started writing Waitlist, and it was just like, man, I don't really know how to write this shit anymore. Like, I forgot how to write metal. So, part of me still kind of feels that way. I mean, I don't know if Animals as Leaders is completely metal. Most of the stuff that I tend to write is like not really metal. We metalify the riffs, but it tends to not really be metal. So, I think the first Misties was definitely like an attempt at being like, all right, well, how do I put all this classical shit that I know how to do into this new world that I'm participating in now?
Right.
I'm like this guitar guy in this metal scene. It's also prog, but I like playing classical.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I was just trying to figure out how to do.
I love watching you play classical music. You can come freaking serenade me with your classical guitar playing anytime you want.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite things. It really is. Like on tour, whenever
I should have brought a classical on this tour. I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah, we could actually have it as part of our podcast if you did. But no, that's interesting. It's funny, and reading through these questions, I mean, we really pretty much covered it all just throughout the conversation itself. One other question that I have for you in a more business realm is the guitar stuff. So a question that I see come through a lot, either in lessons or just with other artists that we've worked with, is all about endorsements. Right? And how do I get an endorsement? How do I get a signature guitar? How do I do this? And I'm curious as to what your take is on it. I've shared mine, but
well, when I got my endorsement, I think it was kind of the start of, I don't even think Instagram was around. It was MySpace and Facebook. Maybe YouTube was kind of just starting.
Yeah.
You kind of needed to be touring.
Right.
You needed to be, in a touring band to be endorsed. I think more recently you're starting to see people who don't tour being endorsed, who are like internet people. I mean, Luke Holland, he kind of started off as just this internet guy doing drum covers.
Yeah, on YouTube.
Yeah, and then he joined
Meinl. The Word Alive.
He joined the Word Alive,
Sure.
and then became a touring artist. But by that point, he already had all the endorsements.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he was set up. So there's the same thing with a lot of good. There's I think E-Rock or something like that with ESP. He does a bunch of covers, and he's just this dude on the internet. He's fully endorsed, probably makes a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
It's different now. I think being a touring musician, you still can get endorsements, but I think the internet is kind of taken over. I think being a touring musician, you still need to have internet presence, to get that proper endorsement and that sweet deal. Because if you're just a touring musician, whatever. Like, that's not the peak right now. I think it's the internet presence. It's what kind of dictates where your band can play, if it's going to go on tour or not, or if you're going to get endorsements or not, or if you're going to sell CDs or not. I think that internet presence is kind of the big thing. I did a few clinics in South America, and people were asking the same thing. They're like, you know, asking how do you, you know, break out and become a thing? And I was like, truthfully, I think the internet is the main, most effective and efficient way of, you know, doing it.
You can reach everybody.
You can reach everybody. I mean, I remember having to fucking give out flyers and hand out CDs and tapes, cassette tapes at, like, you know, 930 Club in DC. Shot, man.
I remember.
I hated that.
I was talking about that at lessons today. When I was teaching now, I was explaining, like, I used to go to Warped Tour with a stack of CDs and try to just get people to listen to, like, a song and then try to sell it for $5, and they'd be like, I only got 2, and I'd sell it for $2 and just, like,
terrible.
Hustle, pass out flyers, come see my show. Yeah, it's not like that anymore.
And it's such a tiny level of people that you can get, you know, a tiny amount of people that you can get, versus the internet, where if somehow you can create some visual, you know, thing to your song and make it somewhat viral in any, you know, form, all of a sudden you're having people all over the world, you know, looking at it.
Which is hard to do, but stemming from that, just to round that particular small point out, is I always preach authenticity, like just literally being yourself to the best of your ability and being honest. Especially lately, the more honest someone can be about their journey, I think the better. So, like, if I were starting a channel right now, I would start my channel by saying to anyone listening, here's what I'm doing. I'm trying to reach this goal, and I'm scared to do it, and I know it's going to be hard, but I want feedback from you, and I would love you to be involved in the process. And as I put out videos, please critique it, please share it if you like it, but please be honest with me and communicate. And I think people need to communicate directly with their audience as they're releasing the content that they're releasing. And that, going back to the endorsement thing, will create such a direct connection between why a company would want to endorse or sponsor you. Because if you have an audience that is engaged and is paying attention to what you're doing, then that audience is probably going to care about the gear that you're using as well. And that company is going to be way more excited to give you gear to play than anybody else. And it's funny you mentioned the touring thing, because the analogy that I was using earlier was like, you know, there are drummer friends of mine who tour and play in stadiums, like with huge artists.
Right.
But when you have a company, for example, like Minor Cymbals probably wouldn't endorse that artist or that drummer anywhere near, or rather give as much support to that drummer. They would endorse him, but they wouldn't necessarily give as much support as they would someone like Matt Garska.
Absolutely.
Even though that Matt Garska is playing with Animals as leaders in a place like we're playing tonight, which is much, much, much smaller than a stadium. But it's because the type of audience, the fan base, their drummers, their musicians in general, and they're engaged, and it makes sense. And I think, I guess that's the sweet spot.
I think metal, I think that's been like a benefit of metal to the industry. I mean, metal is probably one of the least grossing music, you know, styles of music in the country. You have country, pop, hip hop, electronic, whatever the fuck, right? But still, if like for events like NAMM, the guitar section is still a massive, like one of the most
prog metal. That's what it is,
and it's one of the more, like, you know, highlight things of the whole fucking. And you know, whenever you go to a show, they have some guitarist with some bassist and some drummer, you know, and it's who are just shredders, you know. But I think metal has just allowed, you know, people have always wanted to become faster, double bass, being a slap bass player or sweeper. The fans, like what's the word I'm looking for? The interest that people have in, you know, in that genre is essentially like tied to the fucking music makers, the instrument makers.
Right. Yeah, the gear is so important.
Completely. Everything. I mean, there's probably drummers that don't like certain bands for using certain gears.
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
using certain amps or certain guitars, it's like, it just doesn't work. But it's very specific. And they have their fans, and it works for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I mean, what the gear that we use is very specific to us, and I'm sure wouldn't sound great if we were in a death metal band.
Right.
You know? Like,
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and the whole signature thing, you know, I've witnessed now with my guitar players and like having signature products and so forth. It's such a, that's the other question. It's like, how do I get a signature guitar? How do I get a signature snare drum? How do I get signature sticks? And it's like, you got to ask for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, it has to make sense, you know? Like, I mean, I think there's way more successful guitar players that probably, you know, in some regards could deserve a signature guitar. But I have a signature guitar, but it's what you're saying, the audience that is attached to, you know, or my demographic, you know, that's attached to the band and the scene just cares so much about gear versus the guy who's playing all these pop gigs, you know, who the people, that audience doesn't give a fuck about what the band is playing. You know?
Yeah, not as much for sure. And but what's so cool is that it's based off of the musical credibility that you have, which is a testament to your ability as a guitar player. If you weren't, you couldn't be in this band if you weren't a fantastic musician. And that is a really cool thing. When a fan chooses to buy your signature guitar, it's typically because of the way that you make it sound and the parts you play, and it inspires them to want to learn how to do what you're doing. And that's really cool, because a lot of people say, oh, you know, jazz is dead, or like, you know, musicians, you know, aren't really as important as icons, I guess, is what I'm saying. But I believe that in our world, the iconic musicians are the ones that have that unique ability to be good at their instrument, which is so just different than what you see in the pop world or in some elements of the rock world. And it's funny because we know people that are in the rock world and the pop world who
look at us
and like, damn. And it's cool.
I want to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like, you're hella way more paid than I am, dude.
Yeah, it's like, can we switch this to where we get paid per note that we play versus what they're doing? But yeah, it's really cool. Well, shit. So we're coming up on an hour and a half. Is there anything else that you in particular want to talk about or promote or share or discuss or anything like that?
No, I feel like that's a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot for people to digest.
Yeah, just keep up on all the socials.
Yeah. So where can people find you in particular?
On Instagram, it's Javier Reyes S. So it's Javier Reyes with an extra J in the front and an S at the end. Or Facebook, animalsasleaders.org, mestismusic.com.
Cool. Yeah, and we'll post all that stuff when we post this episode. So that's awesome. Well, I'm glad we got to talk, because as much as I know you and as close of friends as we are because of the situations we've been in, it's nice to actually hear a bit more of your story that I didn't really know some of that about. So it's very cool. That tends to happen in these podcast conversations. You end up learning more about somebody and you get closer, and it's just it's good. It can be therapeutic in some ways too, but I don't know if we dug deep into that stuff.
It was good. It was good.
But yeah, so for those of you guys that stuck through to the end, thank you as always for listening. It's a privilege for myself, for my partners Jordan and Justin, and for our guests to be able to get to share anything about our lives with you guys. And the fact that you give a shit enough to listen for an hour and a half of your time really means the world to us. So many of you now have sort of been hip to our Facebook group and have joined up. So I just want to take a brief second to promote that. So we have a Facebook group for the Chocolate Croissants podcast. The address is facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. And we talk about this every week, but there is just such an amazing amount of positive engagement that goes on there. People asking questions, looking for answers, and getting support and answers. We post about our guests that we're going to be having weekly, and we get questions from the audience for guests like you, Javier. It's such a positive community of people that are willing to help each other, that are trying to help each other, that are trying to stay involved. And if you are listening and you aren't aware of this group, please just take a second to hop on your Facebook page, check it out. It's a private group, but if you ask to join, we'll definitely accept you. And you don't have to be fully engaged. You can just kind of see what's going on, or you can, be super active and get involved in all the conversations, which there are certainly many of them going on. And lastly, as always, any feedback that we can get from our audience is really, really appreciated. So whether you consume your podcast media through your phone or through some other medium, typically I listen to all my podcasts on iTunes. So if you're like me, if you don't subscribe to the podcast yet, hop onto your iTunes app, your podcast app, search for Chocolate Croissants. You can hit the subscribe button, and then every Monday when we release a new episode, hopefully while you're asleep with your Wi-Fi, the episode will download, and then you won't have to worry about using up your data when you listen to the podcast. And as always, again, any feedback you can give us in the form of a review or a rating really helps us. And please be honest. Tell us what we can do better. Tell us what guests you want to see. Tell us how we suck, because this is definitely something that we're trying to hone as a craft, and we want to be the best that we can. So the feedback we've gotten so far has been fantastic, and we look forward to hearing more from you. So with that being said, thank you to Javier. We got a show to play tonight, so we probably got to get ready for that. But in the words of Mr. Jordan Goodman, we're going to see you guys later. And as always, bye-bye.
Jordan here again. I've done a lot, I do a lot, but if bye-bye ends up becoming my legacy, I think I'd be okay with that. We're at the end of episode 35. I just want to say thank you for your attention. As always, we are grateful for it, we appreciate it, and we love you for it. And we are also grateful, appreciative, and love Rode Microphones as well. RODE.com. They have hooked us up before episode 1, which meant they put a lot of trust and faith into us with their audio equipment. We started with the Procasters, and that's what we do when it's more formal. I am using the NT USB mic right now because I am not at home, and that's what Matt used for this episode, being on tour. Very simple, just hooking it up into the laptop and you're good to go. If you have an iPhone, you want better audio. You have a video camera, you want better audio. If you have your own podcast, if you're recording music, whatever it may be, Rode Microphones can hook you up with your audio needs very professionally. And they're from Australia, so that counts for something, right? RODEMIC, Rode Mic on Facebook and Instagram. Check them out. Or more simply, RODE.com. That is it. We will be back next week with episode 36. I will see you in the Facebook group this week. Seriously, if you're not in there, join. And if you don't have Facebook, I can understand. But seriously, Facebook offers a lot, mostly the Chocolate Croissants Facebook group. Hope to see you in there this week. And I will see you next week, wherever you are, wherever I may be. Much love, and always. Bye-bye.